Hi and welcome to the channel. Let me ask you something a little bit uncomfortable. If someone collapsed bleeding badly in front of you right now, would your first aid kit actually help the situation? Most people think a first aid kit is enough. Band-aids and ointment and gauze, maybe some gloves. But here is the truth that I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about. Most first aid kits are designed for comfort, not for survival. This kit right here, this trauma kit, this is not about scrapes and blisters. This is about buying time between injury and EMS. And today I'm gonna open this up piece by piece and explain why every item is here. And more importantly, why you should build your own instead of trusting a pre-made kit that looks good on a shelf. Because when trauma happens, you don't get to pause and Google what to do. Welcome back. A family first aid kit is for minor injuries. You know the kind. They're usually in a hard shell case and they have a bunch of different stuff in them. A trauma kit is for life-threatening injuries. It's for bleeding that you cannot stop. It's for airways that you need to protect and shock that you need to prevent. This kit isn't meant to replace EMS. It's meant to keep someone alive long enough for EMS to arrive. And the difference between these two things is often just minutes. And I want to add something here from a disaster preparedness standpoint, because this isn't about just random accidents. In natural disasters, mass casualty events, or even extended power outages, EMS response times can stretch a really long time. Ambulances get overwhelmed, roads get blocked, help takes longer. In those moments, you are the first responder, and not because you want to be, but because you are there. A trauma kit isn't about fear, it's actually about resilience, and it takes some training. We're going to talk about that. It's about being able to stabilize someone when the systems are delayed or stressed, which is exactly when injuries become fatal. This is the Condor Rip-Away EMT pouch. I chose this pouch for 3 reasons. It's got a rip-away design. I can tear this off a belt. As you can see, there's MOLLE on the back and also a different way to strap this on if you have just a buckle system. But you can rip this right off of a belt, and that is some tough stuff. But I can tear it off a belt, vest, or bag and take it to the victim or patient. Number 2 is organization. There's elastic retention, and I'm going to open this up in just a second, that keeps items visible under stress. Number 3 is durability. This pouch gets thrown in and out of vehicles. It gets dragged around on different backpacks and abused. So when adrenaline is high, you don't want to dig. You want to see. Mounted on the outside via MOLLE is a CAT tourniquet. This is not optional. This may be, in a serious situation, the most important item in the entire kit. Massive bleeding kills faster than almost anything else. Imagine a car accident. There's glass everywhere. Someone's leg is bleeding heavily. You don't have time to unzip. You don't have time to think. You grab this, put it high and tight, and this windlass turns until the bleeding stops. This is a tourniquet from North American Rescue. There are a lot of tourniquets for really cheap on Amazon, but I would recommend that you go with one from a recognized brand, because you don't want a cheap windlass and you don't want the band or the windlass to fail in an emergency. This is why I choose North American Rescue. Tourniquets require some training in order to be proficient with them and to understand the risks involved. That's why there is a piece where you can write the time when the tourniquet goes on. You need training before you just use a tourniquet, because before you take the tourniquet off, you need higher medical attention. That means most likely a hospital or a medical clinic that has some sort of surgical capacity. Now I said high and tight, well, what does that mean? Well, if you were to cut your arm, say here, and you had arterial spurting, right? You need to get a tourniquet in between that spurting and your heart. So that means deploying the tourniquet up here, because this is where you're bleeding from, and then my heart is here. So you need to have that done properly. Now you can see what I need to do here is adjust this so that it's fairly tight right on my arm, and then I can begin doing the windlass cranks. You crank it down, and then you lock this into place, because this is a little loop on here, and when this is tight enough, you can just lock it in place, and that is when you would record the time that you put the tourniquet on. And yes, I have the directions along with it, just inside this pouch, because if something were to happen and I wasn't able to answer any questions, or someone else came along in this emergency, because maybe this was for myself, maybe I passed out, this is for someone else, so they can even read about and look at what has been done, so it gives them a little bit of a clue if they're not familiar with tourniquets. They don't just take it off or do something other than care for me properly. So for all these reasons, that is why this lives on the outside of this pouch. But we're gonna go inside. So let's open this up, and we're gonna talk about some things. And the first thing I wanna talk about is neutral gloves. So we've got a couple sets of gloves in here, because you never know if you're gonna need more than one pair. So these protect you from blood-borne pathogens. They also protect the patient from infection. I choose neutral gloves over latex. They are stronger and there's no allergy risk. You put them on before you touch blood, if possible, not after, not halfway through. Next are trauma shears. These cut clothing, seat belts, bandages, and tape. Here's the thing, you can't treat what you can't see. Bleeding hides under clothing. Shears like these give you access without causing injury. And just a word of explanation about trauma shears, the reason they're trauma shears and not just regular scissors is because they have a little metal tab. This tab keeps you from cutting something deeper than the fabric that you're trying to remove. We have small gauze pads right here, and we also have large gauze pads. So why would we have two different sizes of pads in here? Well, the small pads can be for minor bleeding, wound cleaning, and also padding a larger wound. The large pads are for heavier bleeding, pressure application, and wound packing support. So gauze is a simple thing, but it's foundational. And I will say this, this is called iodine tincture, and it is for cleaning and just sterilizing a wound. These items work together to prevent complications from infection down the road. I also have more gauze pads in here, so I'm going to just pull them out. I'm gonna pull everything out of this so that you can see actually how much stuff goes in there. So there's another two, these are 3 by 3 inch pads. Gauze is really simple, but it is foundational. At any point as we go through this kit together, if you have a thought about this, shoot it into the comments. I read them all. We talked about gauze pads, now we're gonna talk about gauze rolls. So there's multiple rolls of gauze in here because one is usually never enough. And what we would use this for is securing pads, wrapping a wound, and maintaining pressure. You can also pack a wound with this as well. Bleeding doesn't just stop because you hope it will stop. It stops because you apply consistent pressure. I have 3 of these, and we're gonna take them out and place them next to the other gauze. So next thing we're gonna talk about is triangular bandages. This is the classic triangular bandage, most versatile tools in the kit, so you can use triangular bandages, and they're right under the rolled gauze. And I've got a couple of them in here. So let's talk about what these do. They can be used for slings. You can use them again for pressure bandages. These things are long. You can wrap them around any sort of limb, torso, use them as a head wrap. You can also use these as a tourniquet backup, but remember they never replace something that is purpose-built as a tourniquet, but you can use these as a makeshift tourniquet because it's big enough to get around that limb. Old school, yes. Outdated, absolutely not. Now we're getting into more serious pieces of trauma kit. And these are vented chest seals from Rhino Rescue. And this is an item that almost no family first aid kit includes, but trauma kits should. So chest seals like this are used for penetrating chest wounds, gunshots, stabbings, and severe punctures, even in a car accident. When air enters the chest cavity through a wound, it can collapse a lung. A vented chest seal like this allows air and blood to escape without letting more in. Those of you who are unfamiliar with chest seals and might be a little bit intimidated by them, there is directions right on the package on how to use it. But basically, you wipe the area, make sure it's clean. You remove the protective liner, which allows the adhesive to stick it to the skin. Then you apply this seal and you let the valve do its job. This is one of those tools that I hope you never have to use, but if you need it and don't have it, there is no really good substitute. Everything we've covered so far is really important, but here's what disaster preparedness teaches us. The most dangerous injuries don't happen when help is close. They happen when systems fail or are overwhelmed. The next item in this kit is what bridges that gap between injury and escalation. And one item near the end isn't about stopping bleeding, it's about stopping someone from dying quietly after the bleeding has already stopped. You're gonna make it. Stay with me. At this point in the video, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button that tells the YouTube algorithm that more people should see this. There's also a new button on YouTube, one that helps me as a creator. It's called the hype button. If you hype this video, thank you. I really appreciate it. With that being said, you can also support this channel by supporting your own preparedness. In the description, there are links to products that I use and believe in. There is my Amazon storefront, my freeze-dried food solution store Thrivalist, which also teaches survival courses. There's also a link to flashlight provider Woobin Lights and precious metal provider Silver Gold Bull. I buy from all of these sources and I've made it easy for you to prepare as well, using my experience to your advantage. Again, I thank you for your support in this and keeping content like this free for you. Let's get back to the video. Like I said, the next item is really important, and that is this hemostatic clotting bandage from Charter Tactical. It is actually 12 feet long in here. It's 3 inches by 12 feet long. It's designed to accelerate clotting in severe bleeding where pressure alone is not enough. Think about a deep wound where blood is pooling fast. You pack this into a wound, and again, that takes training. This is a little bit different technique, and you need to know how that works before you run into this situation, before you just go out and buy this. I mean, go out and buy it, but learn the training as well, because to have this is a lifesaver. So you pack this into the wound, then you apply pressure, and now you're not just slowing blood down, you're helping the body stop it. So this is not for scrapes. This is for life-threatening hemorrhage where seconds matter. Something I want to point out about hemostatics is these are really important for where you cannot use a tourniquet, because you can't use a tourniquet on your torso. You can't use a tourniquet on your neck or your head. You can't just crank this tight on your head and expect to live. This is really important for those kind of areas. And as all of these things tie together, we're going to talk about the next piece, and that is an Israeli tensioning bandage from Rhino Rescue. So why does this matter? Well, it has a built-in pressure bar. I'm going to show you some B-roll on how to use this. It also allows for that mechanical compression. It's extremely fast to deploy. You literally rip this open. It has these easy to rip little notches to make it very easy to tear. So you can apply this to yourself. You can apply this under stress. These bandages turn uncontrolled bleeding into controlled bleeding, which is the entire goal of trauma care. There's a few more things to talk about. We're just gonna set this here, and underneath that, there's another rolled gauze. So let's talk about what's in here. Hockey tape. It's cheap, it's strong, and it's reliable. You use this for securing dressings, reinforcing bandages, and you can use it for splinting in a pinch. This tape sticks when others fail, especially when you're talking about blood or sweat. I do not like medical tape, and I do not have it in my first aid kits. It typically comes in first aid kits, but it does not stick that well in my opinion. I like hockey tape because it's so versatile. Let's keep going. So yes, we still carry some Band-Aids. We carry some cotton balls and swabs. Why? Because not every injury is catastrophic, and treating small wounds early prevents infection later. I take this kit on long hikes in the mountains. A trauma kit doesn't ignore the small things, it prioritizes the big ones first. Again, with keeping things clean, you've got the iodine tincture, and then you've also got polysporin. This is a triple acting antibiotic for wound care, and it has a place. So let's put these down. I also have some pre-made antiseptic wipes in here as well. I also have some Band-Aid wound closure strips, and then some smaller Band-Aids, and here's another little piece of gauze. So here's some more cleaner. Here's another little Band-Aid. So we've got lots of little Band-Aids, lots of cleaning items, but one item that I have in here that's really important, especially when you're dealing with things that are maybe not so major stuck in your skin, like a large piece of metal or something, but maybe it's just a smaller splinter that's really causing trouble. To be able to grab onto something very small, especially when things are wet with sweat or blood, is really important. And then to be able to clean that afterward is also really important. So a good set of tweezers is important in my opinion. A rule to remember is control bleeding first and clean later, but it's important to have the items to be able to clean, because sometimes you may be able to do a little bit of cleaning and control the bleeding all in one step. The next tiny item carries huge weight, and it is a CPR mask that protects you and allows effective rescue breathing. This particular one is from Archer MedTech. So someone collapses, there's no pulse. I don't want anyone to be in a state of hesitation because of fear of catching someone from that victim. This mask removes that barrier. Very important to have in your kit. Let's talk about the quiet killer in emergency medical situations, and that is shock. So we've got a Mylar blanket here, and this is not about necessarily warmth, it is about treating the shock, because shock does kill quietly. This Mylar blanket retains body heat, prevents heat loss, and stabilizes a patient. Bleeding control means nothing if shock takes over. And then just for free, I do have another pair of nitrile gloves in here. And now you can see that this kit is actually completely empty. Why should you build your own kit? Well, pre-made kits save time, but cost understanding. When you build your own, you know where everything is, you know why it's there, and you know how to use it. Confidence beats gear every time, and training beats everything. From a preparedness standpoint, this kit represents self-reliance without isolation. You're not replacing professionals by building a kit like this. You are supporting life until professionals can take over. That's exactly why we have our home medical kit as well. And I'm going to do a further video on this at some point. Preparedness isn't about hoarding gear. It's about knowing the equipment that you have. It's about practicing under calm conditions. Remember, practice with a tourniquet. Practice with an Israeli bandage. Practice with something as simple as a triangular bandage. Can you make a sling? Can you make a splint? Can you use this as a makeshift tourniquet? This kit is small on purpose because the best kit is the one that you actually have with you. This kit won't make you a medic, but it might make the difference between life and loss. From daily accidents to disasters to moments that nobody plans for, preparedness is compassion in advance. I'll say that again. Preparedness is compassion in advance. You are planning to help someone. If you made it all the way here, a big thank you. You are serious about this topic. Build your own. And if you could, put a Band-Aid emoji in the comments. Then I'll know. And again, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. By yourself, practicing with me.